This tutorial is going to review how to dissect a prompt and write an MCSA paragraph when the prompt asks you to analyze a text. Okay, here's our prompt. Authors use a variety of stylistic techniques to achieve a particular effect or to create meaning in the story. For your chapter, analyze how Cisneros uses stylistic techniques to achieve a particular effect or create meaning. Your response should be an MCSA paragraph. Okay, before we do any writing, we should dissect a prompt. Remember that we can dissect the prompt using this table. We're looking for verbs that are asking us to do something, and then we're identifying what those verbs are asking us to do. Remember, we don't want to identify every single verb in the prompt. We only want to be looking for verbs that are asking us to do something. For this particular prompt, the first verb that's asking us to do something is analyze. So we write analyze in the verb column. Now we have to identify what we're being asked to analyze. The prompt asks us to analyze how Cisneros uses stylistic techniques to achieve a particular effect or create meaning. So that's what we write in the what column. Now we want to pay particular attention to what we've written in the what column because that's really where we need to start identifying our own ideas. This particular prompt is asking us to identify stylistic techniques and the effect or meaning that those stylistic techniques create. Now that I've dissected my prompt, I need to come up with some actual ideas about what I'm going to write about. I know, because this is what the prompt says, I know that I need to identify a stylistic technique, and I need to identify the effect or the meaning that that technique creates. For this particular prompt, we've already done a lot of this work because this is what we did when we annotated on our posters. I decide that I'm going to focus on this first paragraph in the first chapter. Specifically, I'm going to focus on the repetition of the word we. That's going to be the stylistic choice, the stylistic technique that I write about. And I know, because I've already done this thinking and I've already talked with my group about this, that that particular stylistic technique shows that the narrator is close to her family. So that's the effect or the meaning that this stylistic technique creates. The repetition of the word we shows that the narrator is close to her family. Okay, now that I have those ideas, I go back to my prompt to see exactly what I'm supposed to be writing. I know what I'm supposed to be writing about, and my prompt tells me that I'm supposed to be writing an MCSA paragraph. Quickly, let me review that an MCSA paragraph is your main idea, context, supporting evidence, and analysis. Your main idea is one sentence that identifies the topic of the paragraph. Your context is one sentence that identifies where you found your evidence or quote. Your supporting evidence is the quote that supports your main idea. And your analysis is 3 to 5 sentences that explain how the evidence supports your main idea. Now, there is a graphic organizer that you can use to make sure that you have all of these pieces before you actually write it as a paragraph. Okay, so I know that the first thing that I need to write when I'm writing my MCSA paragraph is my main idea. If I go back to my pre-writing, I know that I identified that I was going to talk about the repetition of the word we. That's the stylistic technique that I'm going to talk about. And I know that I'm going to explain how that repetition of the word we shows that the narrator is close to her family. That's what my paragraph is going to be about, so that's what my topic sentence needs to be. Here's my one sentence that explains my main idea for this paragraph, my topic for this paragraph. Cisneros uses repetition of the word we to show that the narrator is close to her family. All right, so I have my main idea. The next thing I know that I need is my context. And I know that my context is just one sentence that introduces where I found my supporting evidence, where I found my quote. So I'm going to explain a little bit about where in the story I found my quote. In the first paragraph of the first chapter of The House on Mango Street, the narrator describes how her family moved a lot. That's what's going on in the story. That's my context. All right, the next thing I need is my S, my supporting evidence. I know this is a direct quote from the text, so I'm going to choose a quote that has a lot of the word we, because that's what my paragraph is about. Here's my quote. We didn't always live on Mango Street. Before that, we lived on Loomis on the 3rd floor, and before that, we lived on Keeler. All right, the last thing I need in my paragraph is my analysis, and I know that this is the most important part of my paragraph because this is where I explain myself. I know that my analysis needs to be 3 to 5 sentences, and that those sentences need to explain how the evidence, how my quote, supports my main idea. Here's my analysis for this paragraph. In these sentences, Cisneros uses the word we each time she describes the family moving from one location to another. The word we includes everyone in the family, not just the narrator. The repeated use of this word emphasizes that the narrator thought of herself as a closely connected part of the family. Her family was in these repeated moves together. And there I have a complete MCSA paragraph. I have a main idea, context, supporting evidence, and analysis. Before I know that I'm finished, though, I want to check my response against my prompt dissection to make sure that I actually got everything. My paragraph definitely analyzes, and I've identified the stylistic technique that Cisneros uses, the repetition of the word we, and I've explained how it creates meaning in that it shows that the narrator is close to her family. So that's how we dissect a prompt and write an MCSA paragraph for a prompt that asks us to analyze a text.